Some of you who are lucky enough to have taken Philosophy 101 classes may remember such names as Socrates, or Plato, Aristotle, and a few others. These three in particular come, of course, from ancient Greece, from the city of Athens in the 5th and 4th century BC. It all started with Socrates. He was a wealthy citizen of Athens, so he could afford to spend all his days sitting on the porch of his villa and talking to his students. His most favorite student, Plato, also was a rich man and a citizen of Athens. He too had a wonderful house, a mansion, where he was teaching his students in turn. But the third one, Aristotle, was not so lucky. He wasn't born in Athens. He was not a citizen of Athens. So according to local law, he was not permitted to buy real estate. Only the citizens could own houses in ancient Athens. So unlike Socrates, unlike Plato, he didn't have a mansion where he could sit and pontificate for hours about the meaning of life. So he had to look for another venue to convey his message, to give his speeches. He decided that he will do that in the public area where young men were exercising. I'm sure when you think of ancient Greece, you're going to think of Olympic Games, all these very sporty men throwing the discs, running and exercising. Well, this was happening in a park that was called Gymnasion. Sounds familiar? Gymnasium comes from Greek language. This was the original workout place. This is the original gym. So Aristotle thought to himself, well, they cannot kick me out of a public gymnasium. I will go and teach there. But of course, because all these men either were running, jogging, or exercising, he couldn't simply sit and talk, because nobody would listen. So he would run or jog or walk with the people as they were walking and jogging and talk to them about his own take on philosophy. Eventually it would become known as a walking school of philosophy, because he had to teach in a public gymnasium, and he taught by walking with his students. I'm thinking perhaps because when you walk you get more oxygen in your brain, it stuck better with them than Plato or Socrates. But that school, even if you open your Philosophy 101 classes, was called ever since Peripatetic School of Philosophy. Peripatetic, which means walking school of philosophy. Peripateo means I walk in Greek. So if you even Google or go to Wikipedia and search what do you call Aristotle's school, they will say peripatetic, because it was all about walking, not sitting on you know what. So I am telling you this not only to impress you, this is only a part of my reason to tell you that, But I am telling you about peripatetic school of theology because that word peripateo happens in today's reading. As I was preparing for the Sunday and going over the text of the second reading, out of curiosity I checked the Greek, the original version, and I realized our English translators once again did somewhat limited job. In the paragraph when Paul says, "Brothers and sisters, I earnestly exhort you to conduct yourself to please God." So the English translation, "to conduct yourself," comes out of the blue because Paul says to peripateo, to please God, to walk in order to please God. Now, Thessaloniki is the second biggest city in Greece. So whoever was reading or listening to that reading in Greek would immediately figure out peripateo. Oh yes, just like Aristotle 300 years ago. We know what you are talking, Paul. Peripateo means a walking school of thought. So Paul is telling his audience and us, walk in a way that will be pleasing to God. Walk in a way that will be pleasing to God. You see, faith is not a very sedentary lifestyle thing. Faith is a very dynamic experience. I think on almost every page of the Bible, someone is walking somewhere. First, Adam and Eve are kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Then Abraham is walking from Iraq to his promised land. Then the patriarch Joseph is going to Egypt. Then Moses going back from Egypt to Israel. Then Joseph and Mary are traveling from Nazareth to Bethlehem. Once Jesus is born, they are becoming refugees and traveling to Egypt. When Herod dies, they are going back to Nazareth. And then Jesus' whole 3 years in the Gospels, he is walking around from town to town. There is lots of peripateo in the Bible. There is lots of walking and constant movement in the most important stories that we read in the good book. So maybe when Paul says walk in a way that is pleasing to God, he is encouraging us to look at our faith as a dynamic and growing reality. You shouldn't be content with your faith as it is. You should always want to experience new facets of your faith. You should always want to learn more, to pray more, to be more, find new and fresh ways of being a believer. Now, it's not enough to know good enough to go to First Communion. If you're on your First Communion level, you need to walk more. If you are on your confirmation class level, it ain't enough neither. You need to walk more. After 10 years of marriage, if your love to your spouse has not changed, it's not right. You have to love more in a new way. Love, like faith, is a dynamic reality. A few weeks ago, my father got himself a new toy. Some of you met Stan, my dad, and you may know that he loves electronic toys. He likes playing with electronic toys. Basically, he's a big boy, and he got himself an iWatch. And my mother is calling me one day saying, "Something is wrong with your father." I said, "Why? What's happening? Is he sick?" "No. He's walking from bedroom to the balcony, then to kitchen, to the back to the balcony, then to the bedroom, for no reason whatsoever." "Why?" "Well, he says his watch tells him to do so." Apparently, iWatches and Fitbits, those things, tell you to get off your behind and start walking. My father never walked in his lifetime, not a day. He is very much attached to his car. But once he got his new electronic toy, he's walking like an insane person from one room to another of the house. Maybe think of the Advent as such an iWatch to tells you, get off your behind. Start walking in your spiritual life. Now we think of Joseph and Mary walking all the way from Nazareth down to Bethlehem. It was at least a week or 2 weeks long journey. Imagine a pregnant woman traveling on a donkey in a very unfriendly climate at times. Advent tells you and tells me to start walking again in your physical life, but also in your spiritual life. Walk to learn more, walk to pray more, walk to love more. Amen.